The wind moved softly over the broken land, carrying the smell of burned metal and dust. The planet had been silent for years since the war ended, but still smoke rose from old craters. A lonely human scavenger named Ethan Cole walked through the ruins with a scanner in his hand. His boots crunched over glass and bones. He wasn't looking for trouble, only for something he could sell: old tech. Energy cells, or maybe a clean water pack. Ethan's face was rough from the sand and cold nights. His ship had broken down weeks ago, and this ruined alien base was his last hope. The scanner beeped weakly, showing signs of life energy nearby. He frowned. That didn't make sense. There shouldn't be any life left here. The war between humans and the Zereth Empire had ended 5 years ago. Leaving only ghosts, he followed the signal deeper into the wreckage, stepping over fallen pillars and twisted machines. The sky above him was pale green, filled with lightning that never made a sound. A broken banner still hung from a wall, written in alien symbols. Purity above all. Ethan shook his head. Yeah, sure. Purity killed you all, he muttered. Then he heard it, a sound so soft it made his heart stop. A cry, thin and trembling, almost like wind at first. But then again, it was a baby's cry. Ethan froze, looking around. The sound came from under a pile of metal beams. He ran forward, dropping his pack, and pulled at the heavy debris. Sparks flew as he moved a power rod aside beneath the wreckage. Inside a cracked pod lay a tiny creature. It was a baby, blue-skinned, with small ridges along its head. Its eyes were huge and glowing faint silver. It was crying weakly, trapped in broken glass and wires. Ethan's hands trembled. He had seen aliens of many kinds, but never one this small, this helpless. He knelt down slowly and touched the pod. Hey, it's okay, he whispered. The baby stopped crying for a second and looked at him. Ethan used his knife to cut the wires, carefully lifting the child out. The baby was light as air, shivering. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around the small body. The alien child clung to his finger, its tiny hands glowing faint blue. Ethan's chest tightened. You poor thing. You're freezing, he said softly. He had seen 1,000 horrors during the war. But this felt different. It felt human. A sudden voice crackled from his wrist communicator, cold and robotic. Human life form detected in restricted zone. Identify? Ethan didn't answer. He turned the comm off and looked toward the sky. He knew that voice: alien patrol drones. The kind that still guarded the Empire's dead bases. Moments later, the ground hummed. 3 floating machines appeared from the fog, shining bright lights across the ruins. One of them stopped right above him, scanning the air. Detected unauthorized contact with Biounit C-3. Abandon the specimen. Ethan held the baby tighter. Not happening, he said under his breath. The drones repeated, abandon the specimen. It is defective. Not permitted to survive. Ethan's jaw clenched. He could see their weapons charging up. The baby started crying again, scared of the noise. His pulse raced. He had no rifle, no armor, just his old sidearm. Barely working, he took a deep breath, his soldier instincts returning. He ran toward the nearest wall and rolled behind it as a laser beam burned the ground where he had stood. He fired once, hitting a drone's sensor. It exploded with a flash. He covered the baby with his body, sparks flying around him. The other 2 drones circled back, their voices now louder. Surrender. Surrender. Abandon the defective life form. Ethan shouted, defective. It's a baby. He pulled a smoke canister from his belt and threw it into the air. The white fog spread quickly, hiding him from view. He ran. Clutching the baby close to his chest, he could feel its tiny heartbeat, fast and scared. As he ran through the ruins, he thought of the wars, of how both humans and aliens had killed in the name of power. Now here he was, holding one of their children. Saving it from their own kind, he almost laughed at the madness of it. But his throat hurt too much to speak. Finally, he reached an old tunnel leading underground. He slipped inside just as the drones fired again. The tunnel shook, dust falling from above. He covered the baby's head and waited in silence. After some moments, the sound of the drones faded away. Ethan sat down, breathing hard. The child looked up at him with glowing eyes. So full of life and trust, he smiled weakly. "You're safe now." "Little one," he whispered, "they told me to leave you, but—" "They don't know humans," the baby cooed softly. Clutching his jacket, outside, thunder rolled over the dead planet. And the human who had once been a soldier now held the smallest hope in the universe. Ethan looked at the dark tunnel ahead, his eyes cold but alive again. "Let's get you somewhere safe," he said, quietly, as the lights from the destroyed drones faded behind him. The galaxy had forgotten what love looked like, but tonight, in the wreckage, humanity remembered. Ethan ran through the cracked land as the wind howled behind him. Each step threw up clouds of red dust that clung to his clothes and skin. The alien baby pressed against his chest made faint sounds, small gasps of fear mixed with weak cries. The baby didn't know what was happening, didn't understand that death followed close behind them. But Ethan did. He had been a soldier once. He knew the sound of pursuit behind him. Glowing lights streaked through the dark sky. The alien drones were still searching. And they would not stop. Their scanners could track heat, heartbeats, and even oxygen movement. Ethan had one advantage: the storm. Thick dust clouds rolled across the wasteland, turning everything into a red blur. He found a broken slope that led down into a ravine. He slid down, holding the baby tight. Rocks cut into his hands, but he didn't let go. When they reached the bottom, he crouched behind an old metal pipe that jutted from the ground. The baby whimpered softly. Ethan whispered, "It's okay. They won't find us here." His voice was calm, but his heart was racing like thunder. A loud explosion echoed far above. The drones were bombing the ruins. Trying to flush him out, Ethan gritted his teeth. The Empire must have seen his cum signature. They knew a human was still alive on this dead world. That alone was enough for them to destroy everything again. He looked down at the child. It blinked at him with silver eyes, small lights flickering under its skin like stars. "What are you, little one?" he whispered. The baby made a small cooing sound and reached for his chin. Ethan smiled for the first time in years. "Yeah, you're not so scary," he said softly. He needed shelter, food, and warmth. The storm could kill both of them if the drones didn't do it first. He opened his wrist device, a cracked human military model. The screen blinked and showed an old map of the sector. There, 10 miles east, an old mining station from before the war. If he could reach that, maybe they'd survive. He started walking again. The storm grew stronger, dust slicing across his face like knives. The baby cried. Ethan held it close, covering its head with his jacket. I know, hang on," he muttered. Every few steps, he looked back. But the red mist hid everything. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. Hours passed before he saw a shape ahead, a tower leaning sideways, half buried in sand. That was it, the mining station. His legs ached, his throat burned, but he didn't stop as he got closer. He saw the huge metal doors ripped open long ago. Inside, darkness waited. Ethan stepped inside carefully. He turned on a small flashlight. The beam cut through the black, dust-filled air. Showing broken equipment and old tracks, he walked slowly, every sound echoing. The baby had fallen asleep, breathing softly against his chest. He found a room that seemed stable and cleared a small space on the floor. He laid the baby down on his jacket and looked around. "You'll need warmth," he whispered. He broke apart old wooden crates and used a spark tool from his belt to make a small fire. The soft orange light filled the room. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. He sat near the fire, staring at the baby. "You know," he said quietly, "they told us humans were monsters too." He smiled bitterly. Guess they were wrong. Then his cum beeped again, a faint signal. It wasn't his. It came from somewhere above. "Ethan Cole, ex-lieutenant, serial 394C. A cold voice said, "You are charged with harboring an imperial specimen. Return it immediately. You have one chance." Ethan froze. His name. They knew his name. He grabbed the cum. "You listen to me," he said, his voice low. "This isn't a weapon. It's a child. It is a threat," the voice replied. "Do not force us to remove you by force." Then the signal went dead. Ethan leaned against the wall, eyes closed, his head felt heavy. "They won't stop," he whispered. The baby stirred, waking up. Its little hand reached for him. And for a moment, all his anger melted away. "Don't worry, I'm not giving up on you," he said softly. He ate a small protein bar and gave the baby water from a clean cloth. It smiled weakly, strange light glowing through its veins. He wondered if it even knew how close death was. Then, in the distance, he heard the engines, not drones, this time. Something bigger, heavier, a transport ship. His heart stopped. He ran to the doorway and looked out through the dust. 3 black shapes appeared, alien walkers, each one the size of a small house. Ethan's breath caught. "They found us," he whispered. He turned back, grabbed the baby, and looked toward the far tunnel at the back of the station. It led deeper underground. "Hang on, little one," he said. Tightening his grip, "We're not done yet." He ran again, the baby wrapped tight against his chest. The fire died behind him as the station shook from the first blast outside. Walls cracked, alarms screamed, and dust filled the air. The baby began to cry again. Louder this time, Ethan ran faster. Hard pounding, behind him, metal screamed and shattered. But ahead, a faint light flickered at the end of the tunnel. Hope, he didn't know where it led. Maybe deeper into the mines. Maybe out of this nightmare, but he had no choice. As he disappeared into the tunnel, the mining station above exploded in flames. The Empire's hunters searched the ruins again, finding nothing but smoke deep below. Ethan held the crying baby close and whispered, "You're safe." "I promise." He looked up at the ceiling and smiled tiredly. "They'll never understand how humans love." The tunnel stretched for miles beneath the ground. Narrow and filled with dust, Ethan's flashlight flickered as he moved, the sound of his boots echoing against old steel walls. He was tired, hungry, and his throat burned from breathing dry air. But he didn't stop. The alien baby in his arms had fallen asleep. Its breathing calm and steady now. He followed the tunnel until it opened into a vast underground chamber. It was a forgotten mining shelter from the early wars. The walls were covered in old warning signs written in both human and Zereth scripts. Caution, unstable zone. The lights on the ceiling still blinked weakly. Powered by a fading reactor, Ethan looked around. The place was quiet, almost too quiet. He laid the baby down on a blanket made from his torn jacket and sighed. For the first time in days, they had a roof, even if it was metal and dust. He leaned against the wall and let his head fall back. "We made it, little one," he whispered softly. The baby made a small sound, not quite words, but something close to comfort. Hours passed. Ethan scavenged through storage rooms, finding old supply boxes. Most were empty. But in one, he found protein packs, a half-dead power cell, and a rusted water purifier. "Lucky day," he muttered. He fixed the purifier and set it up. dripping slow but clean drops into a tin cup. When he returned to the baby, it was awake, its silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. It reached up with tiny fingers and brushed his chin again. Ethan smiled weakly. "You hungry?" he asked, mixing water with a nutrient pack. The baby took it eagerly, the glowing veins under its skin pulsing gently as it swallowed. For a moment, the world outside didn't exist. There was only the quiet hum of the reactor and the soft sound of breathing. Ethan watched the child curiously. "You're different, aren't you?" he said softly. "They called you defective. But you seem more alive than any of them." He walked toward a broken terminal and tried to bring it to life. After some sparks and static, a faded hologram appeared, a recording. It showed alien scientists talking in their sharp language. Ethan couldn't understand all of it. But one phrase repeated over and over, "genetic anomaly." Then the screen showed an image of a baby. This baby. Ethan's heart sank. He realized the truth. The Empire had been experimenting with hybrid genes, trying to mix alien DNA with human resilience. This baby was the result, a living symbol of what they feared most, something between them. Something that proved they were not so different after all. He turned off the screen and looked at the child. "They wanted to erase you," he whispered. "But you might be the future." Suddenly, the baby's eyes widened. Its small hand glowed brightly, and the air around them shimmered for a second. Ethan felt static crawl over his skin. "What was that?" he muttered. Looking around, the baby giggled softly, unaware of the energy pulse it had released. He checked the scanner, and his stomach dropped. The signal from that pulse had gone out. Straight through the walls and up to the surface, they would find him again. Ethan started to pack fast. He needed to move. But something deep inside him told him to stay. The baby needed rest, and he had nowhere else to go. Maybe he could turn this shelter into something stronger. Something they could defend over the next few days. Ethan worked like a machine. He sealed the tunnel entrance with old blast doors, fixed lights, and wired up traps using leftover mining lasers. He found a generator buried in the back and rewired it with human tech. When it finally hummed to life, he laughed out loud. "See, kid? Not bad for an old soldier each day." The baby grew stronger. It learned to crawl and babble. It followed his voice with its glowing eyes. Sometimes it laughed. A sound so pure, it made the cold metal room feel warm. Ethan would talk to it for hours, telling stories of old Earth, blue skies, oceans, music, and laughter. He knew the child couldn't understand the words, but maybe it could feel the meaning one night. As he sat near the fire he had built from old cratewood, he whispered, "You know, I don't even know your name." He thought for a moment and smiled. "How about Lyra? It means star." The baby laughed softly, and Ethan nodded. "Yeah. You look like a little star, but peace never lasted long in the galaxy." A faint vibration shook the floor, then another. Ethan grabbed his rifle and ran to the tunnel. Lights flickered red. He knew that rhythm dropships. They had tracked the signal. He turned back toward Lyra, who stared at him with bright eyes. "They found us," he said quietly. His voice was steady but heavy. "I guess it's time to show them what humans are made of." He picked up his rifle, strapped Lyra against his chest again, and faced the tunnel entrance. The faint hum of alien engines grew louder. Shadows moved on the wall. The hunters of the Empire were coming. Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes hard and calm. "I won't run this time," he whispered. "Not while you're breathing." The metal door began to shake as the first explosion echoed through the underground shelter. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the baby cried out. Ethan held her close, whispering, "It's okay, little one. Humans don't abandon family." And as the sound of invasion thundered closer, the old soldier prepared to remind the galaxy what humanity truly meant. The metal walls trembled with each distant explosion. Dust rained down from the ceiling as Ethan tightened the straps holding baby Lyra to his chest. The soft blue glow from her skin pulsed against his heart. He could feel her tiny heartbeat. Fast and frightened, "It's okay," he whispered. "I've got you." He checked his old rifle, half rusted. Power cell blinking red, but it would have to do. The tunnel lights flickered, and a deep hum rolled through the ground. The alien hunters had arrived. These weren't drones. They were living weapons, hybrids of armor and flesh, trained to track by scent, heat, and heartbeat. They didn't stop until their target was gone. Ethan crouched near the sealed blast door. Listening, the air was heavy with static. Then came the voice, cold, sharp, and mechanical, echoing through a communicator channel he hadn't used in years. "Human soldier Ethan Cole," it said, "you are sheltering an illegal specimen. Surrender the anomaly and you will be granted quick death." Ethan laughed bitterly. "You really don't understand humans, do you?" he whispered under his breath. The wall on the far side of the shelter glowed red as something massive began cutting through it. Sparks flew, a heavy claw tore open the steel, and a figure stepped through 9 feet tall, wrapped in black bio-armor, its face hidden under a mask of bone and metal. 2 more followed behind, silent and deadly. Ethan backed away slowly, keeping Lyra close. The lead hunter spoke in a voice that sounded like gravel grinding on glass. "That thing you hold is not life. It is infection. Hand it over." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You call love an infection? Then I guess I'm sick forever." The alien raised its blade arm and charged. Ethan dove behind a console as energy bolts ripped through the air. He fired back, one shot grazing the hunter's shoulder. It barely flinched. The second alien lunged forward. Smashing a support beam like paper, Ethan rolled across the floor, firing 3 times in quick bursts. One shot hit the creature's mask. Cracking it open to reveal pale green eyes, it screamed in rage. Lyra started to cry, her tiny voice echoing through the chamber, and suddenly, everything changed. The sound made the hunters pause. Their eyes flickered. Confusion spreading like a glitch, the lead one lowered its weapon slightly, whispering in its language it should not sound. Like us, Ethan didn't wait for them to understand. He slammed his palm on the power control, triggering an old mining shield. Blue energy walls burst up between him and the invaders. The aliens struck it with their claws, but the barrier held for now. Sparks hissed where their weapons hit. He ran to the back of the chamber, setting Lyra down in a small metal pod he prepared days earlier. "Stay quiet, little one," he said softly. "Daddy has to buy us some time." Lyra blinked up at him. Glowing faintly, almost understanding, he turned back toward the flickering barrier. The hunters roared and tore through it inch by inch. Ethan grabbed a plasma grenade from his belt, pulled the pin, and threw it right as the shield collapsed. The explosion shook the ground, smoke filling the air. The shockwave threw him back against a wall. His ears rang. The aliens screamed in pain. One fell, its armor melting, but the leader survived. Its chest burned, one arm missing. It staggered toward him, fury in every step. "You protect the corruption," it hissed. "You are less than an animal." Ethan stood, limping, eyes burning with anger. "Maybe," he said, lifting his rifle. "But animals protect their young." He fired his last shot straight through the alien's chest plate. The creature fell with a hollow crash, green blood spilling across the floor. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of small fires and Lyra's faint breathing. Ethan dropped to one knee, coughing hard. His body hurt everywhere. But he crawled back to the pod. The baby was safe. Her little hands reached out, and he smiled weakly. "Told you. Humans don't quit." Then a low rumble filled the air again. not from above this time. But from his old console, it flickered to life, showing a signal spreading across the planetary grid. His battle, the gunfire, and Lyra's energy pulse, all of it had been transmitted. The galaxy now knew. And among the static came a message, distorted but real. All Imperial units, priority alert. The hybrid survives. Send reinforcements. Ethan leaned back, exhausted, staring at the message. Guess it's never that easy, he muttered. He looked down at Lyra. We'll move again soon, okay? But for now, we rest. He carried her to the far side of the shelter, where he had built a small, warm spot near the fire. He sat down and held her close, watching the flames dance across her glowing face. For a moment, he felt peace, fragile, but real. Above the planet, alien ships shifted their course, engines burning bright as they descended through the clouds. Their orders were clear: recover the hybrid, destroy the human, leave nothing behind but far below. In the dark warmth of an old mining shelter, Ethan Cole whispered to the sleeping baby, "They'll come for us again. But they don't understand. You're not their weapon. And I'm not their slave." His eyes hardened, his voice quiet but firm. "You're my daughter now, and I'll die before I let them touch you." The fire flickered. The shadows stretched, and in the silence, a new kind of war began, not for power or empire, but for love. The one thing the galaxy had forgotten how to fight for. Ethan woke to the sound of thunderknot from the sky. But from deep within the earth, the explosions above had stopped. Yet he could feel the tremors rolling through the metal floor. The Empire's forces were reorganizing, preparing something bigger. He looked at Lyra, who slept peacefully beside him, her small chest rising and falling, her faint glow painting soft light across the walls. He ran a hand through his dusty hair and sighed. "We can't stay here forever," he whispered. He checked the old computer terminal again. The signal log was still flashing from last night. A transmission beacon had activated somewhere in the ruins above, probably triggered by the energy surge during the battle. It meant one thing: they knew his exact location now. He walked toward the comm desk, half broken and rusted with age. But still humming with faint power, he sat down, staring at the screen. A thought had been forming in his mind ever since he first found Lyra. Something bigger than survival. Something that might change everything. He switched on the recorder. The light blinked red. "This is Ethan Cole," he began, his voice steady but quiet. "Former soldier of the Human Defense Corps. I'm sending this message to any human ship, any colony, any soul still listening out there. They told me to abandon a child, an alien child. But they don't understand who we are. Humans don't abandon life. We protect it." He paused, looking back at Lyra, who stirred slightly in her sleep. "They call her a defect," he said softly, "but I see something else. She's proof that we're not as different as they want us to believe. Maybe she's the bridge they've been afraid of." He hit the send button. The console whirred to life, the beacon on the roof igniting like a small sun. It pulsed once, twice, then sent the message racing into the void, carrying his voice across the cold stars. "If you hear this," he said, his tone growing harder, "remember who we are. Remember what it means to be human." The transmission ended with a low hum. Ethan sat back, exhausted. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. He didn't know if anyone would hear it. Maybe no one ever would. But he had done it. He had spoken for humanity. Not with a gun, but with his heart. A soft giggle pulled him from his thoughts. Lyra was awake now, reaching toward the flashing light. Her eyes glowed like twin moons. "Hey, Stargirl," Ethan said with a small smile. "You like that, huh?" He picked her up, spinning her gently. She laughed again, the sound echoing through the empty shelter. For a few seconds, it almost felt like home. Then his radar beeped, a faint movement, not from the surface this time, but from above orbit. A ship, large and slow, was descending through the planet's atmosphere. Ethan frowned, checking the readings. It wasn't a standard Empire signal. Its frequency was strange, older, royal class. Before he could react, his comm buzzed again, this time with a new voice, deep, female, calm but commanding, human unit. This is Commander Serana of the Zereth High Fleet. Identify yourself and the bioform in your care. Ethan froze. They found us, he whispered under his breath. He looked down at Lyra. Hold on, little one. This might get bad. He switched the comm on. This is Ethan Cole, he said. And if you're looking for your bioform, she's safe and alive. That's more than you ever gave her. There was silence for a moment. Then the voice replied, quieter now. You protected it. Yes, Ethan said sharply, because she's a child, not a tool. Not your experiment. The comm crackled again, and the voice said, you do not understand what she is. Human. That child could destroy entire systems. Ethan looked at Lyra, who smiled at him. Yeah, he said softly. She already destroyed one mine. He shut off the comm and started packing. He didn't trust the voice, no matter how calm it sounded. He moved fast, grabbed supplies, weapons, water, and the data drives he'd found in the lab. He had no idea if he could escape, but staying meant death. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, louder this time. Dust poured from the ceiling. Ethan grabbed Lyra and sprinted down the tunnel. The lights above flickered, and a loud metallic groan echoed through the walls. Then silence, complete and strange. He stopped listening. His heart thudded in his chest. Then, from the far end of the tunnel, a light appeared, bright white and growing larger. A massive door slid open, and there, standing in the glow, was a tall figure in silver armor, wings of energy flaring behind her. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes silver like Lyra's. Ethan raised his weapon. Stay back, he shouted. The woman lowered her weapon, her voice trembling. That child. She is mine. Ethan's breath caught yours. The woman stepped closer, her armor shining. I am Serana, High Commander of the Zereth Royal Fleet. They told me she died in the experiments. Her voice broke. I felt it in my soul when she was taken. Lyra reached out from Ethan's arms. Making a soft sound, Serana froze, her eyes wide. The baby's hand glowed faintly, and for a moment, mother and child seemed connected by invisible light. Ethan watched silently, feeling the weight of everything crash down. You're her mother, he whispered. Serana nodded slowly, tears glimmering in her alien eyes. The walls shook again, more explosions outside. Serana looked up sharply. They are coming for her and for you. They will not stop. Ethan adjusted Lyra in his arms, his expression cold. Then we fight. Serana looked at him with something like disbelief. You would fight an empire. For my child. Ethan smiled faintly. She's our child now, for the first time in her life. The alien commander didn't have an answer. Outside, the skies burned as more ships entered the atmosphere, but below, in that broken world, a human and an alien mother stood side by side, both ready to protect the same small heartbeat. And above them, far across the galaxy, Ethan's message continued to travel, bouncing from beacon to beacon. Whispering across the stars, they told me to abandon the child. I didn't, because they don't understand how humans love. The storm outside had turned the sky into a swirling ocean of fire and lightning. The ground shook beneath the landing thrusters of massive alien ships as they descended through the dust clouds. Ethan watched the horizon from the shelter doorway. Holding Lyra tightly in his arms, her small glowing eyes looked up at him, unaware that the galaxy was closing in on them behind him. The tall alien woman commander, Serana, stood, motionless, her armor flickering with light from her battle core. She had once commanded fleets that conquered entire systems, but now, her hands trembled as she watched her child in a human's arms. For years, she had buried the memory of her infant, believing the Empire had destroyed her during the purity experiments, yet here she was alive, glowing and being protected by the very species her people had once called primitive. Serana stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "She knows me." Even after all this time, Ethan looked at her. "Yeah, she's smart. Maybe too smart," he said quietly, trying to read the expression on the commander's face. "You didn't come here just to see her, did you?" Serana's silver eyes lifted toward the rumbling sky. "No," she said, her tone heavy. "I came to stop what is coming." She turned toward him, her gaze sharp and pained. "The High Council has sent the purifiers. They won't stop until she is erased. She is considered a biological threat to our species." Ethan's jaw tightened. "A threat?" "She's a baby," he said, his voice rising. "She laughs. She cries. She holds my hand. How can that be a threat?" Serana's expression hardened because she carries both of us, human and Serith. She breaks the purity of their law. She looked away, her voice shaking slightly, "and that makes her dangerous to them."